Hello, hello. I very rarely go live here on Facebook. I primarily run my business over on the Instagrams, but been banned from going live over there for some time now for being too risky, for just being an outlaw over there. So you're going to see me popping up and popping off more here for a while. And I wanted to drop in with you about the kind of behind the scenes look at how to have a very successful retreat or in-person experience. And I think this is an important thing to talk about right now because there are so many of you who are used to navigating the online space and are branching out and wanting to host in-person experiences, and the two fields are not the same. It takes a completely different skill set, completely different mindset, capacity, and willingness to really be a leader in the in-person environment. And in-person really isn't for everyone. And the reason why I want to speak to you about this is I have been hosting in-person experiences for many years. I've been facilitating in-person experiences, specifically psychedelic experiences, for like over 17 years now. And I've been hosting retreats around the world for the last few years. And we've really been perfecting our craft, nailing it, figuring out what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And last week, I hosted what I would say is the most successful retreat that I've ever hosted. I'm not going to say it's the best retreat. I'm not going to say it's better than, but it was definitely the most successful retreat from a business perspective and from a team perspective. And so I want to kind of walk you through, literally have my notes here. I want to walk you through some of the things that I noticed on the back end and some of the things that I did to prepare to have the best experience that I could have. A little bit of behind the scenes backstory. I've run a certification program called the Elevated Experience Method, and it is a certification training program for people who want to facilitate psychedelic spaces. And last year we had our first group graduation retreat, and it was down in Mexico, which is where we host our annual end of graduation retreat each year. And I would say it was one of the most challenging retreats that I've ever had. So when you have an experience like that, it can leave you with a little bit of trauma. It can really hit your confidence, and it can leave you with a very strong vulnerability hangover. And there is a lot to clean up, a lot to refine, and a lot to pray would go better this time. And so as a team, going into the retreat this year for our students that just graduated down in Mexico last week, we had a lot riding on this. And I think that, there's always room to grow as a facilitator. There's always room to grow as a coach or as whoever you are in the world. We're always meant to be refining and growing. I don't think we're ever meant to get to a place where we feel like we nailed it, or that, we've learned all that we need to do. But I can say confidently that coming off of this last retreat that I hosted, I do feel that it was incredibly successful. And although I am always willing to look for more places of refinement, and there are a few things that maybe I would do differently next time, I feel really positive with how it went down. And my team feels really positive about how it went down. And the guests that were there receiving on the end of that side really feel great about the experience that they had. And so I kind of wanted to just break this down for you. I've got my notes here. And what I want to say first is that our packing, setup, and breakdown was executed in a complete flow state. So we bring a lot with us. And when you are traveling to host a retreat, especially traveling internationally, this gets very tricky with airplanes and luggage and packing. And collectively this year, my team and I brought over 300 pounds of preparations, merch, decorations, outfits with us down to Mexico. And that is a lot to handle. And this year, we really took the time to set up the space. We took the time to unpack everything. We ended up getting a bigger retreat property this year, and we had an actual entire room dedicated to our command space, our central command center. So we were able to really unpack, get organized, and really get the lay of the land and really get a visual kind of perspective on what we were working with. And this also made it easier for our team members who are not living inside my lead team member and I's brain, who don't know how to telepathically communicate with us. It allowed them to have a better kind of palette to work with, to understand where the things were, where to look through things, what the organization was. And in addition to this, we unpacked our personal supplies as well. This retreat that we host, and really any event that I host, has like a strong feeling for adornment alchemy. We bring tons of outfits as a large part of my brand. And so we completely unpacked everything and laid everything out, from our accessories to our shoes to our makeup to our clothes, in addition to all of the supplies for the retreat, both our ceremony supplies, our decor supplies, and our graduation supplies. We were really hosting several parties, several events inside of one event. And so getting it all out and really understanding what we had to work with was number one important thing. And then also having all of these beautiful things with us. Aesthetic is very important to us. Brand is very important to us. We do things very beautifully. It is very gorgeous in our environments. And it was really amazing to be surrounded by all of that beauty. You know, we spend such a long time preparing and collecting and purchasing and curating this experience. And you know, it goes by so quickly. So the more time you can really like bask in the beauty of what you're creating, the more you're going to enjoy it and feel part of it, and it gets to last longer. And so that was the first thing. Second thing is I brought in stronger rules, boundaries, and intentions, especially into the ceremony space that I facilitate. You know, throughout the years, I would say I was more of a loose facilitator and didn't have a lot of rules, didn't have a lot of boundaries. One of the things that I love about psychedelic experiences is there's a lot of freedom within them. And that's kind of part of the excitement and experience of a psychedelic experience. Is it's about letting go and just kind of playing with what reality is and pushing limits and kind of just testing the waters of the experience. And so in the past, traditionally, I didn't have a lot of rules and boundaries. And after coming off of a really intense ceremony experience a year ago when I facilitated a retreat, I realized that I needed a lot more boundaries and rules in place, not only to keep, you know, my clients and the participants safe, but also to keep my team safe and respected, and to keep my energy and just the overall space that I hold in a pure state. And the difference between our experience last year to this year in regards to like how the ceremony space was, it was like night and day. And again, I'm not going to say that it was bad or good. It was just so incredibly different. And having those rules and boundaries in place were really just paramount to the experience being what it became. And then in addition to that, I worked with a much larger space than I normally do. And budget is something to always be considering and paying attention to when you're building out a retreat or an experience. And, you know, this year we spent quite a bit more money on a different type of Airbnb. And we decided to do this to, number one, try it out. But what we ended up doing this time is we had two different villas side by side that were next door properties to each other. And so we had the staff and the team and the retreat all in one side. And then we had our guests, our students, our graduating students in their own villa. This allowed us to have so much more space. This allowed us to energetically have so much more space. This allowed me to have different access to clearing the energy, holding the energy, maintaining the energy in the space. And it created an environment where our guests, our students, were able to come into our home, come into our Airbnb, and have a different level of respect for the space in general. And this actually ended up being really, really beautiful. And I had so much more privacy than I normally do, which felt amazing, and just so much more space on all the levels. I don't know if I'm going to be able to come back from this decision. This might be a situation where from here on forward, we go with retreat properties that are set up like this, because it just worked so incredibly beautifully. I can't even imagine having everybody under all under one roof again. It would be such a different experience now after having this. In addition to that, I expanded my support network this year behind the scenes and in the facilitation space. So not only did I hire a new team member this year that had been helping me for the last few months, kind of behind the scenes, to take more things off my plate, free up my time a little bit, and just take care of some of the mental load. That also allowed my lead team facilitator to have more space and to not have as many responsibilities, not as many back end things going on for her, which allowed her to be more available for the immediacy of the experience at hand. And in addition to that, I hired somebody else to come down and facilitate with us. It was a really proud moment for me to hire one of my prior students, one of the graduates of the EE method, somebody that I worked with for years privately, received the invitation from me to come down and facilitate with us at the retreat. And this was kind of a full circle moment, because one of the reasons why I created the Elevated Experience Method, which is my certification program for psychedelic facilitators, is to create more opportunities for people who are facilitating. And while I don't have any intention or goal or aspiration to work side by side with everyone who comes through our training program, I knew there was going to be certain moments and opportunities where I would be able to foster that connection. And it felt amazing to give somebody that opportunity and to share that space in that way. So we grew on the front end and we grew on the back end, and it just really created a lot of ease for us. In addition to that, we came into this experience with the mindset that we were going to have an incredible time. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this live, we had a rough graduation ceremony in many ways, an intense graduation ceremony in many ways last year. And so we really needed a win this time. We came in with a lot more nerves. We came in with a lot more experience, a lot more knowledge, and just a lot more of the reality of certain things that could go on or that could happen during ceremony that were not things that I had dealt with in ceremony space before. I have always worked with a very certain frequency and energy when it comes to facilitating psychedelic spaces. And, I got a brand new experience last year that really challenged me for the better. It was a beautiful experience that helped really educate everyone that was involved. And I'm so grateful that I had the experience that I had last year, and the people who I was training last year really got a powerful experience that is going to really help them on the back end of the facilitating that they're going to do in the future. And so with all of that said, though, I really needed a profound experience in a different direction this year. I really needed my team to feel confident. I needed my team to feel excited. And we jokingly, I've been jokingly saying, like, let's make psychedelics fun again. We really needed a positive experience. And so we went in with that mindset. We went in prepared every way possible to ensure that we are going to have that kind of experience. We also spoke with our students about all of the possibilities of things that can go down in ceremony. And I really believe in education and integration. And so our students were also prepared for all of the different types of scenarios that could happen. And I know that, instilled probably a little bit of concern or fear in them. But if you are somebody who's training to do psychedelic facilitation, it is really important that you understand what is possible. And maybe you'll never ever have to deal with a lot of the things that could go down in a ceremony space like that. And hopefully you probably won't. I haven't had to deal with a lot of really wild things in the almost 2 decades that I've been facilitating, but the reality is anything could happen. And if you want to be somebody who can hold these spaces and hold your own and really be a strong grounding rod for the clients and the people who are participating in your facilitation, you have to be prepared. And so we went in with the mindset that we were going to be able to handle anything that came up, and we felt confident about that. And we ended up having a very peaceful ceremony, one of the most peaceful and calm ceremonies I've personally ever facilitated. So much so that I laid down during the ceremony, which is something that I never, ever do. In addition to that, we remained in the frequency of fun. We had so much fun. It was one of my biggest goals to have fun, especially with my main team member. We traveled together a lot. We worked together a lot. We were together a lot. And I really wanted us to have this experience where we were really having a lot of fun. And, running business, entrepreneurship, all of the things that you have to handle and be responsible, a lot of it's not fun. And so it was really important for us to like almost overcompensate in a way so that we could keep that energy of fun. And it definitely felt like we succeeded. And we are actually sharing all the behind the scenes, all of the videos and all of the content still here in the Facebook stories and Instagram stories. So if you want to see the behind the scenes on that and all the fun that we had, please tune into the stories over this next week, especially because we're giving it all to you and it is so much fun. In addition to that, we created a very detailed spreadsheet of our retreat costs from last year. It was the most detailed, comprehensive, exact spreadsheet that we've ever created, although we've tracked our numbers throughout all of the experiences that we facilitated. But last year I really needed to understand so that I could figure out the costs of what this actually costs to produce. This is important to understand, not only so you can be successful in the moment of the retreat, but also so you can understand from a business perspective how much it's going to cost you to host these events that are part of your bigger offerings, right? So I run a certification program. It's 7 months long. It's a very intensive program where I'm working with you very closely for the 7 months. You know, coaching calls, Voxer messages, all of those things. And then in addition to that, we host a retreat at the end. And we needed to understand exactly how much it costs so that I can understand how to price things appropriately and how to understand the value of what I'm offering from a tangible viewpoint. And so it's safe to say the retreats that we host are around $15,000. We usually have about 4-ish guests at our retreats, plus our team, and they seem to hit around the 15K mark. And so having that detailed spreadsheet from last year helped me to understand what I needed in regards to funds. And that can be something that's very, very, very stressful during retreat time, especially in the last 6 weeks leading up to retreat, and especially while you're at retreat. Depending on how strong your nervous system is, you might really have a hard time holding space for all of the money that you're going to have to spend. Sometimes in moments, it feels like I'm literally just bleeding money because there's so many people to pay. There's so many costs. There's so many preparations. It's just like money, 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 especially in those last final 6 weeks. And it intensifies leading up to the retreat. And so, you know, it can cause a lot in your nervous system. And so being prepared, understanding where I could cut costs, it really helped us this year. And although we haven't completed our master spreadsheet yet for the costs of this year's retreat, I'm pretty confident and positive that we were able to bring the numbers down, which is amazing because this felt like an even more upscaled, up-leveled retreat. And that's fun to see that kind of success. Like for any of you that are business owners, obviously anywhere you can like get your profit margin adjusted and get your costs down is really, really, really important. And if you are hosting retreats or trying to host experiences, you might have already learned early in your journey that sometimes it's really hard to make a profit on events. And I know there's a lot of people out there who have mastered the ability to create a profit, but it takes a lot of time. And it takes a lot of intentionality and it takes budgeting to be able to actually create a profit. And I know a lot of people don't like the term budgeting and don't like to think about all of that, but it is something that's really, really important to pay attention to. All right. In addition to that, we took steps to have ease with the aspects of the retreat that are hard for us. We know what our problem areas are. We know about the things that are triggering for us. And so just knowing those things and having open conversation about those things is important. And then actively doing what you can to make sure that those trigger points don't get pulled. This required for me having more space, taking more rest. It required my team and I think we officially lost our light here. It required my team and I knowing our strengths and our weaknesses, knowing what our roles were, making sure I stayed in my role, making sure she stayed in her role, delegating well, being calm, thinking about things, and just overall, like really, you know, being a boss in the emotions and all of the things. In addition to that, we're just getting really good at this. So the longer you do this work, the more you do this work, the better you're going to get. It's not going to go well the very first time. Sometimes when I think about, you know, some of our first retreats, we kind of laugh in a cringy way about like some of the things that we were doing. It's very questionable the way we were doing things. And that's how learning is, right? And so the longer you commit to doing these kinds of things, the better it's going to get. And this retreat was living proof of that. We really feel like we hit a top tier moment of our skill set when it comes to hosting retreats. In addition to that, we had a beautiful, incredible group that came together in such a pure, loving way. The people that you have in your space are very much going to direct the experience, and there's a lot of things that you can do to vet that process and ensure you have a good group of people, that you have a cohesive group of people, like-minded group of people. And with that said, there's going to be wild cards. There's going to be people that come into your spaces that you've known for years that are going to be completely different in person, that are going to go through something that could be very triggering, or could be the type of person that doesn't work well with others in real life. There's a lot of us out there, that have been very isolated, been by ourselves for a while, and just aren't very good anymore about being with other people. I think that this is a complication and side effect of all the time we spent collectively at home, during the 2020 year and beyond, and people are weird now. And so it really helps when you have a group that really gets along well together. And I think our intention behind creating a bigger retreat property by having a property for our guests and a property for the staff actually allowed our people to become closer. It allowed them to bond more. It allowed them to get to know each other more, to rely on each other more, instead of just being in a space where they're always looking to us, always watching team, always looking to me for what I'm going to do next. It allowed them to foster relationships together, which created a bond, which allowed the overall experience to just flow more smoothly. So, not every retreat is going to be able to go seamlessly, no matter how prepared you are, no matter how experienced you are. We're coming off of a very big high right now, one of the most successful retreats I've ever hosted. And who knows what's going to happen the next time, right? And especially when psychedelics are involved. I know there's some of you that are going to be watching this that are not facilitating psychedelics, and this is going to be really valuable information for you for any type of retreats or experiences that you're hosting. But for those of you who want to play in the double black diamond realm of psychedelic facilitation, the truth is it's a highly, highly unpredictable field. And you're never, ever, ever going to be fully prepared for what could happen, because anything could happen at any time. And that's one of the fun things about facilitating psychedelics as well. It's a double black diamond zone. It's for people who, really, really want to be challenged. And I guess I'm that kind of people because I love it and I thrive in it so much. All right. I think that's it really that I wanted to share with you. Facilitation just is an art in general. And not only is it the aspect of how you're facilitating the space, but it's also who you are as a facilitator. And that's the kind of work that I'm intensively doing, and the kind of training that I'm offering for the people who go through the EE method, which is the elevated experience method for psychedelic facilitators, my training and certification program for facilitators. And a lot of it is the preparation for the external, but so much of it is the refinement of the internal. Your ability to facilitate has so much to do with just who you are as a person, your capacity, your willingness, your customer service skill set, your people skills, your communication skills, your emotional intelligence, your leadership, your ability to delegate, and your ability to really hold space. And those are the energetics behind what I'm actually teaching. This is a program for psychedelic facilitation, but we're really teaching you how to become the person that can really hold space. And everybody's skill set for this is differently. We're all not facilitating equally. And the good thing is this is something that can be developed. Some of you are just going to have the natural sauce to be able to be the center of attention and to be able to hold the space for people coming together in real life. And some of you are going to have to develop it a little bit further. But the good news is this is definitely a skill set you can develop. And it is my pleasure and honor to bring you into a space where you can learn this further. So I think that's it for me. If you desire to hold space in a way that leaves you feeling at an all-time high, potentially the EE method might be a great place for you to get your next level of training in. And we are in enrollment right now for our 2025 class, which starts next March. We are actually in a really great time right now because for this week, we are in the early enrollment, the early bird. We launched our open enrollment while we were at retreat. We've got the very best price. It's almost 50% off the regular price of this certification program. We also have a 13-month payment plan for you to get in, which is the longest payment plan that will be available. In addition to that, if you are not interested in psychedelic facilitation, but you do want to learn how to hold space for people and facilitate the magic that you facilitate, I would love to have a conversation with you about working together one-to-one. We have some resources for you to help prepare you for retreats and events and things like that. And I would love to be a guide for you for that as well. So message me, come over to Instagram, check out the stories. We're still leaking all the behind the scenes to you for the next couple days of all the fun things that went down at the retreat. And if you've made it this far in this presentation, thank you for being here. It means a lot to me that you sat here and listened and wanted to take in this information. I'd love to hear in the comments, you know, what your biggest takeaway was or what excited you about this. And I'd even more so love to see you in my DMs starting a bigger conversation with me for maybe how we can take this and turn it into an even stronger skill set for you. So you're amazing and perfect as you are. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and